Good afternoon, my name is Samadini Veersekar and this presentation summarizes the key findings of my literature review on how Schlieren imaging is used to study, diagnose and improve the nozzle performance in high-speed flows. This talk integrates findings from multiple peer-reviewed papers and highlights how Schlieren visualization connects directly to shock behavior, separation, thrust, and nozzle design. Nozzle performance is heavily influenced by compressible flow behavior, particularly shock waves, expansion fans, and shock boundary-layer interactions. The literature consistently shows that when a nozzle operates away from its design pressure ratio, two behaviors usually rises. For under-expanded flow, the extrinsic pressure is higher than ambient pressures. That means shock outside the nozzle happens. For overexpanded nozzles, usually the internal shocks and possible separation happens. The traditional measurement tools cannot visualize these structures, so Schlieren imaging fills this gap by making density gradient visible in real time, allowing us to actually see these shocks and patterns. Here you see in the figure 1, which includes two diagrams, the standard C-type Schlieren setup and a single mirror Schlieren system, adapted from Mariani's research plus my research from undergraduate studies. And let me describe them properly. The first diagram shows a classical C configuration with two concave mirrors. Light from a point source is collimated, passing through the test section, and it is refocused into a knife edge, which actually blocks the deflected rays. So the second diagram shows an alternative single mirror system, which is more compact and suitable for small lab setups like in the university. That's what I did. And together, these visual demonstrates the pathways of light, the role of the knife edge, and how density gradient becoming visible in the final Schlieren image. So in this slide, as you can see, the underexpanded jet on the left side and overexpanded jet on the right. So in the left image, you can see a series of evenly spaced shock diamonds. This is typical of underexpanded flow, where the plume continues to expanding outside the nozzle. In the right image, the jet shows a large marked disk and a tighter shock cells, indicating overexpanded flow. You can also see strong compression waves reflecting off the shear layer. So these images serve as a reference throughout the literature because they visually distinguish the two main of design regimes. When we're talking about several Schlieren variants, there are typically a few variants. There are color Schlieren, background oriented, which is called BOS, and high-speed Schlieren, machine learning augmented Schlieren. So each technique adds new capabilities such as identifying separation bubbles, capturing shock oscillations, or extracting quantitative data. This slide shows one of the most informative figures from the literature. These are processed and integrated Schlieren images of a convergent divergent micronozzle with an area ratio of 1.83. Let me describe this image carefully. This plot displays the relative density distribution using a color scale from blue, which is low density, to red, which is high density. And this flow direction is upwards along the positive y-axis. Shock cells are visibly numbered from bottom to top along the plumes. Each shock cell appears as a periodic alternating band of compression and expansion. The color bar on the right quantifies density gradient magnitude. This figure is important because it visually links to shock cell spacing to nozzle operating conditions, and this data was correlated with the measured thrust. In this figure represent a qualitative Schlieren image of an overexpanded jet adapted from Mariani, the image that clearly highlights a large marked disk at a jet core, the presence of a recompression shocks downstreams, and the distinct shear layers forming around the jet boundary. In the panel A, the marked disk region is specifically outlined. This visual evidence is crucial because it shows how overexpansion leads to energy loss, and it's commonly associated with internal separation inside the nozzle. This is one reason to love Schlieren imaging because it gives you a full idea about how the shock behaves inside and outside the nozzle. And this slide contains this figure which demonstrates the quantitative relationship between thrust and the shock cell spacing from Mendoza micro-nozzle experiments, and here's what the figure shows. On the x-axis is the average shock cell spacing measured directly from Schlieren images. On the y-axis is the measured thrust, and the data point form an almost perfectly linear trend indicating that wider shock cells correspond with higher thrust. This image is one of the strongest pieces of evidence linking Schlieren visualization directly to measurable performance metrics. So in this section of the presentation, it summarizes the findings across all the papers. The internal shock structures and separation Schlieren consistently reveals that separation shocks mark this symmetric flow separation internal shock trains, and that these patterns are directly tied to thrust losses and side loads. Shock cell structure and thrust correlations for under-expanded flows with long uniform shock cells results in higher thrust, and also over-expanded flows with tight shock cells, meaning lower thrust. So in conclusion, the literature shows that Schlieren imaging is not just a visualization tool, it's a diagnostic and design optimization technology. It improves our understanding of shock-induced separation, predicts thrust behavior, reveal dangerous unsteady regimes, and provide validation for computational and data-driven models. Because Schlieren is non-intrusive and highly sensitive, it remains one of the most influential tools in the nozzle research even today. In addition to the literature, my undergraduate research aligns strongly with these findings. A low-budget Schlieren system was used to evaluate coal gas thrusters, and similar flow behaviors were observed. And when integrated with quantitative measurements, particularly thrust, Schlieren becomes a powerful diagnostic tool for nozzle optimization. And future research trends include AI-assisted Schlieren processing, automated shock detection, and real-time nozzle performance predictions could significantly advance rocket propulsion diagnostics, and maybe we can build like real-time working fighter jets or intelligent robots in the future. And that's all. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving.